What's up, everyone? It's Mike back with you again on another episode of One and Done with Zeke. How's it going, Zeke?
Yo, it's going good.
All right. For today's episode, we're going to actually go through the Q&A that we posted in the Dragon Ball Collector group and got a lot of questions. So we'll do our best to go through them. Maybe we could, I don't know, pick and choose ones we want to answer. We'll maybe share both of our opinions on it, but we'll kind of do our best to go through all of them for you guys. You
It's
ready to
it's
do this?
oh, I'm super excited. I'm going into this completely blind. I know you've had a chance to kind of skim over all the questions. I am.
Actually, no, I haven't either. Other than the one
Oh.
that I got one anonymous, so I kind of have to know what that is because it was sent to me, but I actually haven't really had a chance either. So we're both kind of going in fresh without
This
much time to prepare.
I like it though. It gives a more genuine response. So
Yeah, exactly. Let me just pull that up really quick. All right, let's do this. First one is from Will. What's up, Will? Why does Mike not sell me cheap DBS cards under market value?
listen. Just because you're the Godfather doesn't mean that carries over to DBS. That's all I'm gonna say on the matter. All right, next question.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. All right, next one's from Adam. What are the best and worst things about the DBS CG community?
Uh, I, I, I'll let you go first with the best.
I like the community a lot. I think there's a lot of people that are super passionate about Dragon Ball, and you can kind of get the feeling that they've always supported the IP even before Super came out. So I kind of always enjoyed being around people that just have an organic passion for Dragon Ball as a whole. That's always been something that's been very cool to be around. That's probably up there for me.
For me, it has to be um the communication. I've played card games for nearing 20 years now, and I will say that Dragon Ball is a card game is a card game that like while Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, Vanguard, all these other games definitely have huge online communities and presence and communication. It speaks volumes to me that I'd almost argue that the community is more vocal and aware of each other in such a short time span of the game. You know what I mean? The year one nationals championship player is still an active member of the community, and people know who he is, and people talk, and that he's just like a normal person in the community that's discussed. But it also leaves me to one of my most hated things about the community. But I'll let you answer that question first, Mike.
The worst thing about the community, this this is why you should prepare ahead of time because I'm already blanking.
I
What?
think I know for you.
Okay, yeah, go for it because I'm trying to think of something.
I think the thing that you, because we talk all the time, I think the thing that you hate most about the Dragon Ball community is the people coming in who undervalue and underestimate the IP, like the Rudies. To this day,
Okay,
to this
that's
day,
that's a good one. Yeah,
Rudy doesn't talk about Dragon Ball because I remember the video where he's like Dragon Ball's a flash in the pan. This is like year one Dragon Ball. He's like
yeah.
a flash in the pan. It's gonna die. And then in his most recent video, he like just said the boom of all card games, and the last one he said was Dragon Ball, and he touched on each card game except for Dragon Ball. He said nothing about Dragon Ball besides mention that all card games are in a boom, and that's it. So I feel like the underestimator and the anti Dragon Ballers. It's kind of I feel like
That's actually a pretty good answer. Yeah, I'll probably plus one. I don't know if you're claiming that one for yourself, but
uh I do have my it's not mine. My probably most hated thing about the community is the representation of pro players. Well, I'm not gonna name names. I'm not gonna name individuals, and I'm really good friends with some of the national championship players who have placed in top, who've won, who've placed, who've made top 16, top 32 in both the 2018 and the 2019 events. I'm gonna be honest that there are some very well-known competitive players who just I feel don't represent the best about the game. They have very toxic personalities, and while not everybody is like that, I hate that some are like that, and at the pinnacle of the pro player community, and I just really hate that about the community, that they're allowed to be they're allowed to have a voice when I feel like they aren't healthy for the game.
Hmm.
That's probably my most distaste for the game that I have in terms of community.
Well, that's a pretty good one too, I'd say. All right, so I hope that answers your question, Adam. Next is from Kyle. What's up, Kyle? Will the DBS card game grow stronger than before when tournaments start again? I'd sure love to learn how to play so I can attempt to win some trophies. All right, second part isn't a question, but yeah. So will the DBS card game grow stronger than before when tournaments start again?
I'll answer this one first. As a store owner, as somebody who organizes competitive play for both Bandai official events and unofficial PPG events and have judged, I'm going to tell you right now that when the game starts to hit paper play at a national level across the globe, this game is going to explode even further, and you're going to see card prices skyrocket, not because of collectors, but just because people need cards to play. And this is a hypothetical number, it's relevant. The game was designed in a sense for 100,000 players when it was being created through its time, and now we have half a million people playing. Again, all hypothetical numbers, but it's just to get an idea of ratios. So when they're making cards at a playable level, good, but they're no longer printing the sets as we see with set 9, set 10, set 11 even. And these are more recent sets. That's not even talking about TOP and on. When they start to bring support for older cards and things like that, those older cards were the quantity made was made for a community size of X, and now that size of the community is so much larger that I think once paper play hits, man, it's just. I mean, look at Apex of Power was in PPG's 5K tournament. It was in a second place deck, and that is a $2,000 secret rare, and it is actually being used competitively, and it's winning people's games. And that card is both collectible and highly playable. So as more and more people come into the game and start playing the game competitively, and also collectors just acknowledge now the beauty of the art, the game's just gonna explode. It's gonna have an. I truly believe there's gonna be another explosion in Dragon Ball specifically for paper play, just because of the game design.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, before COVID, there was this like huge surge already, and it was kind of correlated to the events that were going on, right? Because you had tail end of 2019, a lot of the hype around the Nats that had just finished, and then coming into 2020, you had the Fireball announcement. So a lot of things related to competitive play, but also drove a lot of growth in the game, more collectors being aware of it coming in, and so I kind of think there's a correlation. They're related. As soon as more events happen, like Zeke said, cards start to get more demand. Players want the hottest thing, and that kind of also drives collectors because collectors probably want similar cards that players are going after, especially for the higher rare stuff. So, yeah, I 100%. I think once we get back into the way things were before COVID, I think that momentum's just going to come back just the way it was before, and possibly even do more than before because this was supposed to be the first time we had a Worlds, and so I think there's a lot of excitement around that. And once that comes back into into the picture again, I think a lot of that excitement is going to come back again. And obviously, from a numbers perspective, like Zeke said, there's just a lot more players in the game now. The game's a lot bigger than it was in 2019. So you're talking about a much larger player base, also collector base, on top of the exciting things coming down from Bandai. So yeah, I for sure think that you're going to start to see much more surge once things go back to the way they were, and we're kind of already starting to see that, honestly, as vaccines are more and more distributed. I think things start to return back to normal. I think Bandai will probably become more aggressive with reopenings and doing things in person again. So yeah, I'm sure things will be in a good place for sure.
Oh yeah, for the game's gonna do great.
Yeah, great question. Next one from Frederic. Question is, will we be able to keep players interested in the game with people buying out multiple playable cards for their own collection or profit? Will this game be sustainable as collectible only with the terrible pull rate and today's grading cost? So there's two parts to this. Did you want me to repeat the first part?
Yeah, just one more time for the first question.
Will we be able to keep players interested in the game with people buying out multiple playable cards for their own collection or profit?
Yes. So I think people need to understand that the game, no card game has ever died from being too expensive. There's not a single card game in existence that has died because of that. And it's coming from somebody who's played card games for almost 20 years, and there's some card games that have been around almost 30 years. And I think people need to recognize that it definitely changes the. It's like golfing and bowling. This game started as bowling. Anybody can go to a bowling alley and bowl. It has a small price of entry. You buy your shoe rentals. You pay to play for the night and things like that. It's bowling is accepted commonly as an easy to pick up. Anybody can just go to a bowling alley and play. Golfing is a much more intricately costed sport. You have to go to a resort or a course. You have to pay to use a course. You have to invest in clubs. You have to have. There's just a lot more involved, and we can agree that to go play golf, it's just so much more expensive. But golfing is still a very popular sport, and I think Dragon Ball, Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh are all falling into this spectrum that unfortunately, I played card games as a kid, and the price to entry was cheap. Now I'm an adult and I'm still interested in card games, and I'm financially stable and responsible enough where I can split some of my finances into a hobby, and I can afford the new increased cost because I still love card games. And I think people need to recognize that the demographic of people playing card games now are mainly adults. I've been organizing and running Dragon Ball for 4 years, and in 4 years of playing, judging, organizing, traveling. I'm talking the Seattle, Colorado, Denver, Miami, Dallas, San Jose, LA, like pretty much across the country to events the last 4 years. I've met less than 10 individuals that are under the age of 16 that play Dragon Ball. Now, I'm not saying that there's not minors playing Dragon Ball. It's just that because the already Dragon Ball didn't start really cheap. It did have a cheap window for a small period, but as a card game, it was definitely cheaper than Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. But I think as we need to all understand that card games are more geared towards now financially stable adults, and if everybody has money to spend money on singles, I think it should. I think this is just a result of just people growing up with card games and not quitting card games. I'm sorry, if everybody quit card games as soon as they turned 20, 21, and then the age would reset back to the new kids coming in, then I don't think the growth would have happened. Hence why it took Yu-Gi-Oh so long to get to where it is now in terms of cost. Instead of having peaks of cost, its price to entry so high. And I think with Dragon Ball, players like the idea that I'm spending a couple $1,000s on to build a deck, to have a collection to play with cards, but it's comfortable knowing that my purchase is also an investment, that when I'm done playing the game, when I'm going to quit, I'm going to retire, move on to a different game, or just move on from card games in general, it's a comforting feeling to know that what I've invested in, I'm going to get a majority of my money back, if not profit, from my investment. And I think that's actually going to only attract more and more adults into the game, especially when you have the mirror of Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, where they're just outrageously more expensive than Dragon Ball. But that's just my opinion.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that too is, at least from what I've seen, Bandai seems to do a decent job at addressing certain cards that might be super playable but are out of reach for a lot of people with reprints. So there's also that going for the community, I think. Some examples that come to mind is like the UI Goku from Draftbox was reprinted. Senzu Bean's been reprinted a few times.
It's been reprinted
so I
nine
think
times. Nine.
Yeah. So I mean, I think generally though, like Bandai is also like trying to help with that for certain cards. When you get to the stuff like secret rares, then we're kind of like in a weird place because a player can only have one in a deck anyways. So if it was one that they really really wanted and they're serious about playing, I would just hope that the player can save up to be able to afford it. In certain cases, we've also seen Bandai do things where they reprint the secret but still have a way to distinguish it, like they did with the Go Tanks, where they printed a non-foil variant. So I mean, generally Bandai's tried to help out where they can, while still trying to not upset collectors, which I kind of like. So I would say that players should still stay interested, especially because Bandai continues to try and address those issues that are hard to fix with reprints and stuff. So second part of the question was, will this game be sustainable as collectible only with a terrible pull rate and today's grading costs? So let's break this into two. So will this game be sustainable as a collectible with a terrible pull rate? I would say, if you're familiar with other card games, the pull rates aren't actually that bad. Like Pokemon, there's certain cards that it's like 20% chance of pulling, where like a case nowhere near a guarantee. But with I guess with some of the more recent sets where you have 3 secrets, I'd have to check pulls to see the exact percent, but I think it's like 33%. So we're still not even touching like Pokemon difficulty with some of the pull rates on the high rarity stuff.
It's 66.
So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
The terrible pull rate part, I would say that's a relative word because other card games can actually be more terrible. I'd say Bandai is kind of forgiving, actually.
I think they're generous. You and I had a conversation that a lot of people don't. A lot of people are. It's slightly frustrating to me, and I have to remember that I was there from day one. I feel like one of those like gatekeeper kind of people when people ask like silly questions, but I have to remember myself this is a good thing. That means people are want to learn. Set 1 was 4 super rares and no foils and common uncommons, and leaders took up your rare slot, and leaders are bulk and it was 1 SPR for every 3 boxes. You were guaranteed one of each SPR in a case because there was 4 SPRs, but set 1, 2, and 3 1, 2, and 3 followed that formula. 2 and 3 introduced secrets as the 1 per case, and they took up their own slot of their own. There was 1 god pack per case, and a god pack is just foil, common, uncommons, or originally it was just rares because there was no foil, common, uncommons. So now I believe it's 5 to 7 SRs, 2 SPRs per box, and then you get 2 secrets in a case out of 3 in most sets. So if anything, I would say that the pull rates have just gotten actually way more generous. I think what people misunderstand is that sets are bigger now. So when you buy a box, there is more variable in what you can pull. But if you buy a case, the variable differences, I think, just feel that way when you buy a booster pack or buy a box. But when you buy a case, you really recognize that the ratios are pretty even. It's just that back then we had 12 super rares in a set. Now we have 22 to 24, sometimes 28 in a set, depending on the set. Like Draft Box 1 had, I think, like close to 30, and plus the campaign rares. But it was a big set. It was 192 cards, I believe. But now sets are like closer to 150. So I think there's just more cards in certain sets that make people feel that way when they buy a box and they pull a bust. I will say that Draft Box 5 has a unique ratios that are really funny, but that's for another time. Mike?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement too. I don't think it's actually that bad compared to other card games. But and then the second part was today's grading costs. Honestly, this could really be its own episode. What the impacts of these new pricing tiers are going to have on really collecting in the secondary market. What I can tell you is, at least from what I've seen initially, this is still, somewhat relatively new. So it's hard to know for sure what the future kind of long-term effects of these new pricing models are going to be. But so far, it hasn't really seemed to hinder submissions, because in the big picture, like let's say for example you take a secret rare. If that secret rare can sell, let's say for $1,000, and instead of paying, let's just say instead of $25 for getting it graded, you have to pay $50.
75 now.
Sure. So yes, it went up 2 to 3x, but in the big scheme of things, you're still making so much of a return on that sale potentially, that I don't see that being enough of a price increase to make collectors think twice about submitting or think twice about even trying to grade. If we're talking about, like, let's say you're selling the card, let's say the card grades value is 1,000, but cost to grade is like $800. Yeah, maybe then it might have some sort of like issue with submissions, which honestly that's what they're actually trying to do, believe it or not, is trying to reduce submissions as much as they can, because they're just so overwhelmed with their backlog that raising prices is kind of the way to dissuade people from submitting. But I would say, at least based on what I've seen, sorry to cut you off, I was just going to say, based on what I've seen so far, because the price increase relative to how much you can still sell it for is so far apart, that I don't really see it having that much of an impact right now.
I think it's a patience thing. I think people are just upset that the turnaround is for the cheaper pricing is so much longer now versus before it was 5 to 9 months tops. Now it's like 9 months plus for the cheapest. And I think Mike's right. This could be a whole other episode, and honestly, we might really address this topic on its own. What I'm gonna say is, I think the price increase in grading just makes it so people are collecting the right things and not the wrong things. To this day, me and Mike have a joke about the guy who collects common Broly's. They're like a nickel card.
No, it was Bulma.
Bulma, yeah, and the card's like worth nothing, like pennies, like not even an exaggeration. And I think, well, you're welcome to binder collect, but I think it kind of it makes collectors reevaluate what's actually worth grading. Cards of high value are actually worth grading, and I think that's what it's changing, is that the market's going to be more geared towards true value collectibles. And I think it's good, because that gives cards in a raw state a really good time to grow, and then once it grows, then it becomes it hits like a cap where, like, okay, you've crossed this price point, now you're worthy of being graded, and it gives raw cards a chance to grow. Versus when, I mean, if you're paying $75 to grade a $10 card, and it comes back as a PSA 9 or 10, like, where do you price a $40 card that's raw into a PSA 10? Like where do you even find a good price for that? And that's if you do the cheap submission, the $75, which means that you won't get it for 9 months. In 9 months, that card could get reprinted. It could decrease in value. It could skyrocket in value. I think people just need to understand that these price increases are because people wasted a lot of their time grading nonsense. And I think now with Pokemon boom, Magic conservatism, and now Dragon Ball going into the mix, and a bunch of other card games, I think the price increase is good in a sense of just addressing what's necessarily needs to be addressed, and kind of pushing back all of the. There's a lot of nonsense I've seen in collecting, so that's just how I feel about it. But the next one.
Yeah, great question, Frederick, or questions I should say, but hopefully that addressed all of them. Alan, what's going on, Alan? Let's see. Do you see Bandai reprinting earlier sets, including SCRs? I kind of mentioned this one earlier with the Gotenks example. That's already been one where they actually did do a reprint, but they did it in a way where you can distinguish from the original, which, for me, that's like the best of both worlds. You're able to, help out the player communities for a card that may be hard to get by reprinting it and making it cheaper, while still, having a way to tell the difference with the original, so that way collectors can still maintain some sort of value on the ones that they invested in. So I've seen that as one example. I can't know for sure. I don't know if Zeke, you can't know for sure either if they're going to do more in the future, like the Gotenks. But that's one example.
I don't believe that they'll reprint booster sets, but I think Sun Tzu Bean's a great example of this. It's a set one card that's being reprinted, I believe, a total of 9 times, four of which have different arts, and they have variations in those arts as foil, non-foil stamp, state stamp, things like that. So I think they will reprint a lot of or the earlier stuff. If they do, I really believe that they've only reprinted Secrets once, and that was in an errata pack, which reprinted two Secrets. It reprinted SS3 Gogeta and Gotenks, and like Mike said, it was very distinguishable. I think Bandai is going to value Secrets really high, and I don't think that they'll just do if they were to ever reprint Secrets, they would reprint them very distinguishable, and I think they're never going to reprint old booster sets, but they will reprint cards of popularity as we've seen with Draft Box 4, starter
Yeah.
decks, and the new set that comes out this week, Battle Evolution. They will reprint cards, but when it comes to Secrets, I feel like they'll always keep them distinguishable, but they will not
Yeah,
reprint
I would
sets.
say if history is any indication, Bandai seems to like honor and respect the secret rares, which is to me it's an amazing thing to do in modern times because if you look at other card games, Pokemon being the example that comes to my mind, they'll reprint the thing to death and it'll be exactly the same. Sets will continue to be printed until it's like flooded. And at least with Bandai, you don't really see, like Zeke said, them continuing to reprint sets, but they'll take certain cards from those sets and reprint them. And if it's something really, really special like a secret, they'll try and be, aware that, hey, these have actual value to it, so we don't want to disrupt that. We'll, have some sort of change to the appearance of it, so that way you can tell the difference and collectors can still hold on to the originals. So, yeah. All right. Paul asks, what is your most competitive deck and why? So I can't answer this because I don't even know how to play. But Zeke, I don't know if this is something you can help with, or if you don't have a deck yourself.
So I have a deck. I'm currently playing Red Broly. Um, and I like it. It's fun. I played it. I took it to Miami to play at the 5K. I actually played at the 5K. I would say the question was asking what deck do I currently play, right?
What is your most competitive deck? That may not necessarily mean you're playing it now, but I would assume whatever you're playing now is your most competitive.
Right. Red Broly would be my Red Broly BR is my most competitive deck that I'm currently playing. The most competitive deck that I would say that I've ever played was Lemon Lime Frieza during Set 7 format, which was about a year and a half ago. But yeah, those are the two decks I would say. And I'm actually going to rebuild Lemon Lime because I'm going to retire. But yeah, Red Broly BR is my current favorite deck. That's most competitive.
Cool. Next is from Daniel. What is the absolute best way to learn to play the game from scratch?
The app. Bandai has an app that you can download on your phone or on the computer, and it literally teaches you how to play. It literally guides you and hands you through it, and then lets you play against a bot, and it lets you kind of free play after it does the tutorial. And if you want to learn how to play the game, that is literally the best way to learn the basics, and then just go into your local hobby store, buy a couple packs and a starter deck, and people, the community, I'll say, is very welcoming, very open to teaching. So that would be the two things I would do. First, go on the learn on the app, learn the basics. Go to your hobby store, buy a structure deck, buy a couple packs, and have your local game store community really get you going.
All right. From Donate. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Will this group be interested in seeing box breaks? I can start recording them and posting them from my purchases. Uh, Not the kind of question I was hoping to answer. I would say generally though we've allowed box breaks in this group, as long as it's not intended to be for sale, but mostly meant to just show like your pulls and stuff. Then we usually allow those in the group. So if that's kind of like your angle with it, then yeah, feel free to reach out to me or some of the other admins, and we can help get that for you.
But if your intent is to sell, we do have a collector's market group that you're welcome to do it on there. That me and Mike are really also kind of in charge of as well. So I
For
think
sure.
depending on the angle you want to go with, you just let us just communicate it to Mike or myself or one of the other admins, and I'm sure we could direct you on which where you could post. And yeah,
Yep, exactly. From Ben, I was drawn in as a DBZ fan from years ago, and frankly, the beautiful artwork of the cards. Will play someday, I'm sure, but not at present. Question: what products would provide a good blend of collectibility and playability? Also, keep some stuff sealed for future rarity. So, two parts. So, first part: what products would provide a good blend of collectibility and playability?
if you want to be financially friendly, I would say set 11. Vermilion Bloodline is a really good set that has a lot of good staples, a lot of good value and secrets, and also it looks like to be a good set to hold on to and value. I believe booster boxes are roughly like I believe 200 is last time I checked, um, and I think that's not overly priced, but it also has, like I said, both a competitive and a collector's bubble of value tied together. It's kind of like that cross where you have like two bubbles, one says collector, one says player, and then the overlap. I would say Vermilion Bloodline is going to be a good overlap. Draft Box 4 and 5 is another good one, but I would say I would lean more towards collector on that. But yeah, that would be my recommendation for a hybrid of both.
Yeah, I'm just gonna agree with you on those. And then the second part: also keep some stuff sealed for future rarity. So for that, I would say definitely things like Tournament Power. You're gonna want to not open. Uh,
Set sevens.
Universal Onslaught, yes, at 7 with Salt to Sands. Those are probably some of the ones that if you were to buy it, they're obviously going to be more expensive, but because of that, I would recommend to not open it. If there's something in particular you're trying to chase, normally you're better off trying to buy it individually, especially if it's something that has really hard pull rates. Then you're better off just keeping it sealed and buying it separately. But yeah, those would probably be some suggestions for things that if you were to acquire it, I personally would suggest not to open it. All right, from Cody. What's the best way to find out value of product? TCG Player has had issues with inflated buyout prices that I wouldn't feel right charging for things. This is a really great question. Lately TCG Player has been a hard site to kind of use as an indicator because prices really are all over the place. I would say normally my recommendation here, don't go off of lowest listing because, like you said with buyouts, someone can buy out a $2 card, all of the supply of it, then list it at like $1,000. So what I normally try and do is kind of gauge the TCG market price. That's an actual like statistic for every card that they have, and that kind of is like an average based on sales. So like in the example I mentioned, even if everything were bought out at $2 and then someone tried to list it at 1,000 or whatever, you could see the TCG market price saying something like $2. So that can get you a better sense of what the sales average was for that card. And actual confirmed sales are normally a better indicator than whatever is the lowest price. The other example I would say is similarly looking at past sales. eBay is a good one on that. You can filter by sold for a certain search, and then see kind of what the prices were. And they also show you the date of the purchase. So you can kind of sort by date. So that way the most recent sales might be the best way to get like kind of a sense of what the market's paying for something. That would probably be my best way. But try not to focus too much on lowest listing price because again, with the way things have been going right now, it's kind of hard to use that as an indicator. So, is there anything you want to add to that one?
I basically do the same. I go on TCG Player. As a store owner who has a TCG account, we have a useful utility that lets us actually look at what the last sold on TCG was. That's an exclusive feature that's only exclusive to sellers on TCG Player. But I usually just make an average based off of both TCG Player and eBay. I go to eBay completed listings, and that's pretty much I think the best way to do it. Use TCG Player as kind of a guiding book, but once card prices start exceeding the norm, like when you see things aggressively shift price, I would immediately turn to eBay, look at completed listings, and if things are just aggressively fluctuating, and if and like the question mentioned is to sell or to list, I would hold off. I would just wait until things sometimes simmer down and calm down. I mean, as a store owner, I get put in that position all the time where I have 58,000 cards uploaded on my inventory, and sometimes I have to turn my store off for a couple days because sometimes the market's just going nuts, and it's sometimes it's good to just take a seat and just step back. So yeah, no, what Mike said I think is relatively the best option.
All right. From Nathan. What's up with Nathan? Hey Mike, what's your thoughts on BGS and some buyers paying more for a premium grading company and paying more for a BGS 10 gold than a PSA 10? Black label I get, but the whole BGS 10 gold is worth more than PSA 10 argument. Aha. Personally don't see BGS as a premium anymore, especially during COVID. I've seen their quality process just drop time and time again. My opinion, both 10s should hold very similar value, whereas usually a BGS 10 on items like SCR or Signature hold a lot of extra value. Cheers. So let's see. So what are your thoughts on BGS and some buyers paying more for a premium versus... So I guess really the conversation here is gold Beckett 10 versus a PSA 10.
I think I think people need to remember it's I don't want to sound mean, but you and I have talked about this an infinite amount of times. The grade is somebody's opinion. The grade helps you understand that this is in that range. But as a buyer, me and Mike see this all the time. Me and Mike have passed on purchasing PSA 10s and Beckett 10s, and we use the same word. That's a strong 10, that's a weak 10. And I think when you see a graded card that's a graded 10, that narrows down your search, but you should still look at all the PSA 10s that you're shopping around for and actually look at them. Same thing with BGS 10s. I've seen BGS gold 10s that I'm fascinated on how they got a 10, and then I see BGS 9.5s that I'm astonished that they're not 10s. You know, I see that happen, and this is why there is a market for 9.5s and PSA 9s, because sometimes I've seen people, I've seen it myself where a PSA 9 looks better than a PSA 10, and I think both grading companies have definitely changed their quality check. I think a big one is print lines. Print lines can sometimes they're part of a printing process, and it's established to it. But in other games like in Pokemon, I've seen PSA 10s get print lines. So I think it also comes down to preference. Some people like Beckett labels, some people like PSA labels. I personally like Beckett labels on Dragon Ball cards, but I adore PSA labels on Yu-Gi-Oh cards. When it comes to Magic, I honestly hate both. I don't like Magic cards being graded because Magic is collectible due to playability, not really because of icon, and that's something that's a whole other topic. So I think if people want to pay the premium, I think it's fine. I think Beckett does offer more of an in-depth grading service than PSA, or at least a little bit more transparent. So I think if you want to pay for that transparency, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I definitely agree with you that quality has changed back and forth, and I think when buying pre-graded cards, I think you should just use it as your guide stone, not just buy a blind PSA 10. I think you should, when you're buying a PSA 10 or a Beckett 10, you should still ask for pictures, see the back. There's a sale of a card that me and Mike said there's a reason why the listing, even though it's a Beckett 10, there's a reason why the person's not showing the back in any of the pictures, and it's because it's probably a weak 10. And sure enough, when we asked for pictures of the back, we were correct. So I think I think it just comes down to preference. There is a premium, and I think the premium is merited, especially now with PSA increasing their prices so significantly.
Yeah, I would say normally in these instances, I try to, tell people, you know, remember that grading is an art, not a science. And like Zeke said, it really does come down to opinions of employees at the company. So, keeping that in mind, I try and, kind of the saying I have is buy the card, not the label. So what that normally means is use the grade you see as kind of like a baseline, but then kind of also look at the card yourself and kind of try to also grade it yourself and ask yourself, do you agree with the grade it was given, or do you not? And if not, then you can always pass on it and look for another copy. Like Zeke said, we've definitely seen copies that we're kind of like, should that have gone the grade I should have got? But that's just how it goes sometimes. You may have a really strong copy that ends up getting dinged, or you may have a really bad copy that ends up getting a nice grade. That's just kind of how sometimes things go. But as a collector, it's kind of on you to make the decision and ask yourself those questions before you make the purchase. So that would be kind of my thoughts there. So yeah, I would definitely say like yeah, just try and be careful when you buy things. Make sure you thoroughly look at the card front and back. Things like that, just to you know kind of give yourself a chance to also do like a mental valuation on the card before you decide to buy it. Is what I would say. Great question. All right, Jeffrey. Let's see. He actually threw like I think it's like 6 or 7 questions, so this will be kind of fun. Um, First one up. Do you think Bandai will do a NF SCR set? Non-foil. Okay, non-foil SCR set or silver foil alt art set to benefit new players. Um, a SCR set, I don't know. I think it's if it's an SCR that has a ton of demand and is really hard to buy, then maybe that particular one they'll try and reprint it in a way, as a non-foil or silver foil alt, to try and make it more attainable for new players for sure. Like kind of the examples we mentioned earlier. But to do it to an entire set, I don't know if that would make much sense unless it just happens to be like I don't know 3 SCRs that are all in a ton of demand that players are asking for a reprint. But I don't see it being that drastic. So that'd probably be my answer for that one. Do you think Bandai will reprint cards from the theme boosters similar to all the main set reprints?
They have. They have reprinted a lot of the theme booster cards. They've reprinted
Yeah.
cards out of TOP. They've reprinted cards out of World Mat. They've reprinted cards out of Clash of Fates, Draft Box 1, and Draft Box 5. Not Draft Box 6 because it just came out. But they've reprinted cards from all of those sets. So the
Yeah.
short answer is yes. And just to sprinkle on the first question, I don't think they'll make a set, but I think just like they did with the errata reprints, I think they'll do something where it's like a promo where it's still somewhat chase to get, and they'll make it distinguish. I don't know if like Mike said, they'll make a set, but they'll do something to distribute in the event. But there's only like 3 secrets really that are like really expensive that are hyper playable. One of them being Apex of Power, but even then I don't think it's that playable as people think it is. I think Celzino, Broly Ultimate Agent of Destruction, and I guess Apex are really the only ones that I could see players really complaining about being more affordable. But at the same time, it's one of those things that I don't think people understand unless they reprint it in a way where the cost is close to nothing. If the card is that good, the price is gonna. There's a card called Saiyan Instinct Son Goku. That card was reprinted 3 times, and it was still over $100 after the reprints. So it's because the card was just that. The card is not collectible at all. Just to keep that in mind, it's strictly playable. But the card was so playable that the reprint made prices go down maybe 15-20%. And then after a couple of weeks, the prices just jump back up after distribution because the demand of the card was just so high. So I think reprinting a secret isn't out of the question for Bandai, but I definitely believe that they'll do it differently, like you said, non-foil or silver border or silver foiling. I just don't think it'll affect the price as much as you think, because remember these cards are expensive because they're in demand. And while supply and demand does apply to a point, the game is growing at such a large pace that the card's still going to be pretty expensive. I think people underestimate how reprints really work in terms of playability market versus collectibility market. If a collectible card gets reprinted, it does tank because that card is collectible, not playable. When a card is playable, remember 98% of people who buy these cards are players. 2% are collectors. So they reprint a collectible card, then there's only 2% of the market available to purchase up the reprint. Versus you reprint a card that's playable and collectible, now you have 100% of the market driving for it. So, but on to the third question.
With the insane growth and value of DBS cards, do you think we will see an influx of MTG Magic the Gathering type fakes in DBS?
Me and
Good
Mike are
question.
waiting. I want to say I'm at a maybe because me and Mike have been monitoring this for a while. I'm gonna say maybe. We might see it. I just think that the foiling
I
in
mean,
the
we've
game.
definitely seen it a couple of times, but he says influx, so I think he's asking, like, is there going to be a ton of attempts at fakes? Because we've definitely seen it here or there. Awaken Power, people have tried to, sell it off, even though it's a fake. There's been, which this one's actually kind of cool, but it is still technically a fake. Is signatures of characters that actually were never really added as signature cards to any of the sets has been another one that we've seen before. So there's definitely been some attempts at it, but as an influx, I would say I don't know because we're not really there at MTG, level to have the kind of desire to make fakes. But the thing working in our favor compared to MTG is there's a lot of intricacy that comes to some of the chase cards in Dragon Ball. And if you're seasoned or have some sort of experience with the game, it's actually quite easy to tell if it's a fake. I think you might still see some of the newer people that come in possibly fall for it. And that just kind of comes with the lack of experience and understanding what to look for in Dragon Ball cards. But I would say that definitely does help in our favor because, the harder something is to fake, the harder it is for barrier of entry for these scammers. And so the better off it is for the community when there's less attempts because it's just so hard to fake. I don't know, Zeke, if you had anything else you want to add to that, but that's kind
Yeah,
of my answer.
yeah. Well, we might see more fakes. I think. I think they're. I don't think it'll be to the scale of Magic. Magic cards are pretty easy to fake.
Yeah, exactly. I think the barrier of entry part is also what kind of makes Magic, easier to fall for that. With Dragon Balls, we're kind of fortunate that they put a lot of effort into some of the rare stuff that we, get to have. And as a byproduct of that, it's also really hard to fake, I think. So, yeah. And then also that, again, adds another reason to possibly go after graded cards because one of the nice things about graded cards is it's already been authenticated. So, all right. Do you believe DBS packs and boxes are weighable? Ooh,
Yeah,
another interesting question.
I don't think boxes are weighable. Packs are definitely weighable.
Are they?
Yes.
Really? So you can are we talking like base set style that you can actually know if there's a secret in it?
You can know if there's an SPR in it, and possibly a secret. I know for definitive fact, you can weigh an SPR out of a pack. I haven't tried it with the secret.
Are you sure about this?
I
I didn't know this.
I only know because back in the day, I'm talking like set 2.
Uh-huh.
I did this with the scale. I bought a booster. This is back when I was just TOing and playing the game. I bought a box and I had a scale at the time, and I was just like, oh, I'm curious, and I weighed each pack, and I was able to find I weighed all the packs, and most of them had like an average weight with a variable of maybe like a fraction of an ounce. But then the packs that had foils had, but the problem is that there's foil common and commons. And there's also
Exactly.
and
That's
there's
why I'm
foil,
curious
and
how
there's
you
foil,
can tell if it's specifically an SPR because there's other rarities that are weighted too, right?
right. The SPR is just the heaviest because of the amount of texture on the cards. So the SPR was definitely the heaviest pack because I remember when I weighed the packs in my booster box before I opened all of them. I remember that the SPR weight was the highest out of all the packs. I don't remember the weight number or anything like that because I never did it again. But
Even more than the secret? Because you said set two. Set two also had the secret.
my box didn't have a secret in it, so I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I know for a fact, yes, you can weigh packs. I just don't know the accuracy of the ratios between foil having a because there's packs that don't have any foils. There's packs that have just the foil rares. There's packs that have SRs. There's packs that have SPRs. And there's packs that have secrets. So it's really hard to give you a definitive answer of like a heavy or light pack because there are variations in packs.
But I think that's what the question was geared towards though. Because like with Pokemon, like base set, you know for sure at a certain weight that it's a hollow. Like there's no doubt because there's only 3 rarities and only the rare rarity had hollow effects. In Dragon Ball, I think what he's trying to ask is there a certain guarantee on weighing packs as well where you know for sure that you have something with a certain rarity in it?
I,
I agree that you can tell weight differences. The question is it deterministic? Like based on a given weight number, you know 100% that you're going to pull a certain rarity out of it.
I feel like as far as I'm aware, I only know how to deal with SPRs
Okay.
because it's the heaviest one.
Yeah.
Secrets and below and everything else, I couldn't answer that question because I haven't done it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're saying like if you had a pack in front of you and you weighed it and it was X amount, you know for sure it's going to be, well, I guess it's hard to say for sure because you don't have the SCR to compare to.
Right.
But
And it was so long ago, I would have to reweigh. And the thing is, each set's different because cards have different foiling. If you look at the foils, at the foils from Draft Box 5 versus, like some super rares were textured, some super rares were flat on certain sets. If you look at set 5 and 6, they had like the star foil glitter SR style versus other sets didn't. So while yes, there is a way, I feel like there's a uniqueness to each set, and I feel like there's a uniqueness per rarity. So I think that's one of the discouragers of Dragon Ball is just because there's so many variables versus with Pokemon. It's pretty like you either pulled the full art secret, the full art non-secret, or the foil, and then that's it. Like Pokemon's really black or white. Like you have a light, heavy, mid in modern product, and with old product it's just light or heavy pack. So I think it's not the same, but there is some similarities.
yeah, I agree. I think that kind of is nice in some ways because it's harder for a seller to try and give you something and knows for sure what's in it. Whereas with Pokemon, a lot of times when people try and sell you like a first edition pack, it's most likely been weighed and they know there's no hollow in it. That's why they're trying to sell it to you. You can't really get away with that too much in Dragon Ball, which is kind of nice from a buyer's perspective. But also, yeah, it's one of those things like unless you like had the entire box and already pulled something out of that box, it's hard to know for sure if a specific pack has something in it or not that's like a hit. So yeah, I would be curious to know if the community actually has like actual data, like weights from each set. Like Zeke said, different sets are gonna have different like variables, but it would be interesting to see if there actually is a way to determine for like all the sets out there what the different expected weights are and what you can pull. So if anyone has that data, I'd be curious to see it. Yeah, but great question. And then just a couple more from him. What are your thoughts on the current price hikes for grading? So we kind of covered this one already. I don't know if there's anything extra you want to add to it. If not, we could just kind of leave this one.
We'll go to the next one.
And then, do you think there's a ceiling or bubble for TOP boxes?
I don't. I don't think so, unless they reprint the set, which I think is very unlikely. I think TOP is recognized as the alpha of the set, the base set, the Legend of Blue Eyes. I think TOP is in that bubble, and I tell people all the time that the reason why Dragon Ball, why TOP is the price the way it is if I asked you right now, would you buy a PSA 10 Black Lotus for $10,000 today, knowing that the last one just sold for $500,000? Would you buy it for $10,000? Hell yeah. That's what TOP is. It's just people acknowledging that this is the Black Lotus of Dragon Ball, and they don't want to miss the train like they did with Legend of Blue Eyes base set and Alpha. They realize that, so they're paying a premium now to make sure that they don't miss out in the future. And I think that's why I think with TOP there's no bubble. With everything else, I'm 50-50.
I would say the thing that makes TOP really, really special is it's, as far as I know so far, it seems to be the set that attracts the most diverse range of buyers. You have regular collectors, you have crossover collectors, so people from other hobbies coming in that want it, businesses want it, shops, investors want it. Normally when you have an item that basically attracts all of these different groups of buyers, those tend to do the best because there's just constant demand coming from all directions for it. I would say to some extent maybe players, but really most of it is not really as relevant anymore as it used to be. But yeah, TOP being that, plus the fact that it's the rarest set, like there's literally no debate about that. Sometimes people forget that when TOP came out, it wasn't a set you could go to Target and buy. So you have to consider how much fewer options there were for people back then to even acquire this set. Obviously, it's a ton of it opened at the time, so not much is left sealed. So yeah, like it's pretty much at the it's at the front of everything else. It's ahead of everybody else in terms of other sets. If there were anything that happened to TOP, it's a weird comparison, but it's kind of like saying if anything were to happen to Pokemon, would Charizard First Edition crash? It's more likely that everything else crashes before Charizard crashes, because that's the one card that people are least likely to give up, right? And I think TOP kind of has a similar effect to it as well. If Dragon Ball were to crash for whatever reason, TOP is the last to be actually like liquidated by people, because it means the most, it has the most value already. Why would you sell it versus the other stuff that don't mean as much to you and it's not as hard to find? You probably would let go first, right, during any kind of downtime. So I think TOP just by the nature of being the alpha, being the most desired, yeah, I mean, if there is a ceiling for it, it's incredibly high, and I think it'll continue to be high, especially as Dragon Ball goes on the trajectory it's been going in terms of growth, both as a player base and a collector base. So as for a bubble is a really weird word. You can make the argument that the entire like collecting hobby, whether it's Pokemon or Dragon Ball, is in a bubble, maybe because everything is just so high priced compared to how it used to be. But I think based on just the organic demand for cards in general, I wouldn't really call this a bubble. I would just say it's a byproduct of not enough supply being out there for the demand. It's just simple economics, I think. And I think that demand has not waned, and I don't think it will anytime soon. I think there's just been this huge resurgence in people being excited about cards, whether it's to play it, collect it. And bubble to me, it's a really weird word to use just because it doesn't seem to be. The problem is that, it's not like one or two people that are causing all of these price hikes that would then cause it to crash. It's like a ton of people that just genuinely want this stuff. There's a reason why when you go to Target now, you don't see that product on shelves. So I wouldn't call it a bubble, but I would say that, the ceiling definitely is high and will continue to grow, believe it or not, as the game grows, just because it's the set and there won't be another one like it. The game is in a brand new place now, not where it used to be when the set came out. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. That was the last question. It was a big one. But yeah, thanks for all your questions. Next up is Alexander. Do you guys feel like this whole market is sitting in a bubble? Explain why. Either way you answer. I basically just answered this actually in the previous question, so
Yeah,
I don't really have much else to add. Zeke, go ahead.
yeah. Just to address it quickly, I think, all card games are in a bubble right now because I think something I said really earlier in the video is I think people who are playing card games aren't kids anymore, and I think when you have the majority of your populace is people who have jobs versus people who have allowances, I think it really changes how things are valued. And I think while there may be a retrace, I don't think that there will be a pop in as much as people think. Like I said, I'm 50-50 on the whole bubble thing. I think card games as a whole have definitely changed. I want to be very careful with my wording, but I think bubbles.
Yeah, there's definitely been like a shift, but yeah, I also wouldn't call it a bubble. I just think there's a lot more demand than there used to be. So that's pretty much what I would call it. I mean, I would say for the most part, players have continued to play the game, but now there's a lot of new players that want to come in. collectors have continued to collect, but now there's a lot of new collectors that come in, especially with social media influencers. So yeah, I really wouldn't call it bubble. I just think it's the nature of a ton of demand coming in and the supply just not being ready for it. That's kind of how I look at it. So, from Steve, what is the best set to get right now? I feel like we somewhat sort of covered this. I think there was a previous question about what's a set that's both collectible and playable.
Yeah, no.
I don't know, Zeke, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, I think, like I said, Vermilion Bloodline is probably the best in terms of cost, and I think TOP Set 7 and Set 9 would be the other sets. Maybe Clash of Fates. That's about it.
And let's see. One last one. This was from Anonymous. I was wondering which grading system would be better, PSA or BGS?
Look at the cards that you're looking to buy, and look at them in each label, and whichever one makes you feel better about them is the one you should buy, because to me they're one and the same in terms of faults and in terms of quality. In my experience, they're one and the same. It just comes down to what you prefer, and I think that's honestly the best way to answer it now, especially with the price difference. So.
Yeah, I would say kind of similarly. Is the card itself and whatever slab it is, does it merit the grade that it got? To me, that matters the most. So if you're holding two cards side by side, and the PSA 10 copy looks a lot better as a PSA 10 than the BGS 10 does as BGS 10, I personally would opt for the PSA 10, knowing that it was a more accurate grade. If you really want to talk strictly value and numbers, kind of the rank that I kind of have is Black Label tends to command the most of either grade company, which is basically a BGS Perfect 10. Then you'll see a higher price go for the Gold Beckett 10. So you're talking about 3 10s and a 9.5 for a Beckett, and then PSA 10, and then a 9.5, and then PSA after that. So if you're asking as someone who's trying to submit cards, I would say unless you're extremely confident that you think it's something Beckett's going to give back as a 10, you're better off going with PSA. Because if it's not a Beckett 10, normally there is not really a market for it. Otherwise, yeah, that'd be kind of my recommendation. If you're asking as a buyer, someone who's looking at cards to buy, and you're not sure which grading company to use, I think kind of like what Zeke said and what I said, go with whatever makes you happier, in terms of the label and how the card looks with the grade it got. That would kind of be the suggestion there. All right, we did it. We went through everything.
Wow, that was quite a bit. It's impressive. I'm happy that people want to learn more about the game, and it's kind of cool, Mike, because you and I came from two completely different ends of the spectrum when this game first started.
Yeah,
and I think it's really cool that you and I have known each other and talked for so long, and we're both considered really strong resources for the game, and we appreciate everybody's time and appreciates our opinions on everything. And I'm gonna we'll make sure to post a link on the description. If you guys aren't already part of the Dragon Ball Collectors group, we invite you to join us and have more discussions. If you guys ever have questions in the future, me and Mike are pretty active on the page, and we'll comment and post on there every now and then. So we'll maybe do another one of these probably in the summertime. Both me and Mike have a very busy schedule. I can't begin to describe how busy me and Mike are, but this is how passionate we are when we find the time to make these videos. Right now it is 11 o'clock at night, and we've been wanting to do this actually for a while now. So we care about your guys' hobby as much as we do. So yeah,
100%. Yeah, right there with you. Thanks to everyone that did ask a question. We hope that this was provides some kind of value. Let us know if there was anything we missed, or if there's anything you want us to kind of go deeper on. Otherwise, yeah, I think this was fun. A lot of new people coming in, so it's kind of a good time to give them a chance to ask questions. And yeah, like Zeke said, hopefully we'll do another one of these. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, Zeke, for your time as always, and talk to you guys later.
Have a good one, everybody.